Searching for Oneself, Lecture 1603. Listening to your lectures, Master, I have understood that until one comes to the knowledge of oneself, one can neither understand one's neighbors nor what surrounds us. In fact, lacking both wisdom and discernment, a lack of self-knowledge would bring only anguish and suffering. Master, please tell us how you have succeeded. When I was young, I thought I was a really good person, yet I couldn't get along with anyone. In the end, I was reduced to living a miserable state, so much so that everyone tried to avoid me. It was then that I made the decision to put an end to my days. I left the city and headed for the mountains with the firm intention of taking my own life. When I got there, I wanted to at least take a walk, say goodbye to nature before leaving, but I only had time for reflection. I knew nothing of the world and even less who I was, but I had lived until then in an arrogant way. And it was when I became aware of this truth that I knelt down and started collecting rubbish. Bent over my knees, I began to ask myself questions. I asked myself who I really was, why I was walking around the world, and what was the reason for my existence. For 17 years I wandered aimlessly up and down the mountain in the company of these questions, collecting rubbish and avoiding talking to anyone I met. I had certainly not gone up there with the aim of studying, but all the years I spent in the midst of nature made study possible, and it was thanks to this that I was able to find myself. Slowly, as I continued in my humble work, nature began to reveal its secrets before my eyes. I didn't bother to look for myself at all costs. I just kept thinking and asking myself questions, and in doing so, without almost realizing it, and with the purity that was in me, I understood and became part of nature itself. I had the possibility to visit other dimensions and places where gods and souls dwell, and so I was able to study. I understood how creation happened, who we are, and why we came to experience on earth. At the time, nature herself was in charge of teaching me everything, and so I was able to witness extraordinary things. Without almost realizing it, my study continued for all the years I spent at the foot of that mountain. And in the end came the time of return. After 17 years living in that place, it was then that I was suddenly awakened by a thunderous sound coming from heaven, and my whole body was shaken by it. Cheonbukyeong, the 81 letters. It was at that precise moment that the 81 letters of Cheonbukyeong were delivered to me, and my whole body witnessed it. I understood that these were the words of heaven, and that all the study conducted over those 17 years was enclosed within the 81 precious letters. Thus, Cheonbukyeong explains how the laws of nature operate on earth. I also understood that it is up to the Hongik-Ingan, those who were born with the sole purpose of benefiting others, to guard this powerful law and bear witness to it. I also understood that it is always up to them to open a new way and guide each person through it. I left the mountain and took to visit villages and towns, and it was during those journeys that I realized what a wonderful work of art the world of ours was. On those occasions, I could also see that the Hongik-Ingan, although they were already in circulation, were not ready to carry out the task assigned to them. I understood that our evolution had come to a standstill, and that our children did not know which path to take, so I allowed myself to chart it for them. If the first generation of Hongik-Ingan lived with respect for their own nature, for example, bringing benefit to their neighbors, the next generation could only follow in their footsteps. We are not divided, nor on the other hand could we be, since we are one. It is only by recognizing such a principle that the time of the Hongik-Ingan can open up. By working hard for the benefit of others, as is in their nature, they will eventually succeed in breaking the chains that keep them imprisoned in the past. These people, who are so precious and important to society, should live according to the principles of Hongik. Me? What could I do for my neighbor? And for my country? And for society? And for all mankind? They should grow with these principles in their hearts. All of you should do so. A life devoted to the benefit of others would flow in a gentle and natural way, and you could spread light and well-being around you. Since early 2013, a new way of life began to take hold and should be respected and followed by all. In those days, mankind entered the time of the Hucheonsidae, whose fundamental principles are marked by a strongly non-individualistic concept of life, a concept that would put the we above everything else, and by the rule that would demand to live for the benefit of others, according to the principles already mentioned of the Hongik ethics. And so, from now on, those who would persist in living only for their own interests and with increasing greed would only encounter difficulties on their own path. More simply, those who continue to think only of themselves would witness the destruction of their lives. Living instead according to the foundations dictated by the Hucheonsidae, we would cross life with joy and serenity, and in doing so, we could also do justice to the sacrifices of our ancestors, who opened the way for us and allowed us to reach this goal, and express our gratitude to them. So make your life joyful, do it, so that the suffering and sacrifices of those who have gone before you can be completely dissolved. The way has opened, the path has begun.